earlier in the previous panel, I was discussing the importance of management team and their execution. And being able to follow up on things you say you're going to do and the announcements you make is one of the important things I look for. I know Jason can attest to this. We've seen companies announce really anything that they can just to get some PR, whether they're going to a conference, what they had for breakfast, you know, anything. Namaste has been something different. You guys have been able to execute, and the management team is something special because the follow-through is one thing I really find unique about them and something attractive. So can you tell us a little about how you got started, you know, how you guys were able to execute so well? You guys recently announced a very exciting agreement to enter the Canadian LP space. Can you provide some insight?
Sure. So, you know, it started out with just the two of us, and we grew. Throughout the different acquisitions that we've done, we've learned from mistakes and we've grown. So, you know, our most recent acquisition of a company called Australian Vaporizers, prior to this, they owned about 80% of the market share there. So together, the combined entity with our penetration that we already had in Australia will represent probably 90% of the vaporizer space in Australia. But in the process of doing these acquisitions, we're learning that there's valuable team members and management team members on each of these companies that we acquire. So as we've gotten more advanced with the acquisitions, we've definitely brought on really amazing teams, like our IT team that we brought on from everyonedoesit.com, which is one of the oldest smoke shops on the internet. We brought on our new CFO, who was one of the founding members of Goldman Sachs Europe, Philip Vanderberg, so he's amazing. We brought on an IT manager from Everyone Does It that's doing incredible things with our website, using artificial intelligence and machine learning to track users that are on the sites, what they're looking at, what they want to buy, what price range they're in, and it actually adjusts the website on the fly, catering to different users. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for the website. The website's reactive to our users. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on, and it comes from parts of the management team that we've brought in from different acquisitions. So a lot of, like you said, a lot of synergy coming through these different groups, and we have gone through and we've completed all these acquisitions that we said that we were going to do, each of them being strategic in the different regions of the world that we're operating in. And like you had mentioned, the most recent announcement that we made was basically a letter of intent to acquire a company in Canada that's in late stages of an approval for a license to sell marijuana, but not to grow it. So there are obviously a lot of really great growers in the Canadian market, and that's not where our expertise is. Our expertise is in e-commerce, online sales. So the goal ultimately is to be able to buy wholesale cannabis from LPs in the country and then market and sell them within our own network. So that for us is, you know, a lot of upside. It's, you know, we see a lot of future growth potential in the Canadian market. We are Canadian, we're a Canadian stock. So for us, that would be a transition from the pure hardware play more into consumables. So it's something
Ticker
new.
symbol is NXTTF for the US symbol, by the way, and N for Canada.
So, yeah, that sums up where we've been at with our acquisitions, I think.
You guys have been busy.
Yeah.
They have been busy. I mean, you guys have seen an improvement from human capital, operating capital. It's exciting stuff you have going on. Canada's been busy though, right, Brett? I mean, you guys are seeing changes every day with legislation set to come in April. What are some of the trends you're noticing?
Yeah, I think, you know, as I said earlier in my presentation, we've been very lucky that it's been a federally mandated and rolled out program, which gives a lot of foresight and clarity. One of the areas where there's been a little bit of uncertainty, you know, we've known for a couple of years now that recreational legislation is coming down. Our government assembled a task force about a year ago, made up of people from the Justice Branch, from Health Canada, from the different police commissions, and they traveled around the U.S. and traveled around the world in different areas where there is recreational access to cannabis. And we expect that legislation to be tabled, the first draft of the legislation to be tabled in the next 2 or 3 months. You know, and then probably a year and a half of that to be worked through the debate process on the rewriting. But you know, the pathway is clear, and it will be before the next election. Otherwise, the party in power will not be reelected. So we expect that legislation to become the operating grounds for recreational rollout. So you know, you're seeing these companies that have set up based under the medical platform, and just for accessing medical patients. That industry in itself, that segment of the industry is very large. But you're now seeing them transition. The ones that have had the foresight to to structure their companies and build them with the understanding that this next step is coming are going to do a lot better. The people that are scrambling today to now try and readjust their their operating procedures and their structures to be able to participate in that are going to have a bit of work to do. So that's what I mentioned earlier. What I was saying is make sure that however you build your companies and what you're doing, that you have the foresight of what may come, good or bad. You have to be able to adapt. I think that's very important.
I actually have something to add to that, and even outside of the public space, so marijuanastocks.com, we're a private company, and my belief, which if you've ever heard me speak at any other conference, is that these are event-driven equities. That's a term that we like to use. There's catalysts. In the United States, the catalyst this year was Florida, Nevada, California, all approving legislation that was favorable to cannabis. And now even looking at that as an owner and seeing what was going on in Canada, I realized probably in September that after the November elections, yes, the public pot stock market in the US was going to boom, but the next catalyst was in Canada. So what did I do? I started shifting my attention and my audience to the Canadian markets, because I think that's where it will be the most viable. And I started to set that pipeline up, and just kind of a minor shift like that means that my revenue will continue, and everything will just kind of stay status quo till I need to readjust and come back to the United States. For us, our whole thing is the Canadian market is a great market because that barrier of it's not a Schedule I drug as it is in the United States, which we all know is ridiculous. It's legal, and it's also a safer play for U.S. investors to come.
How does it benefit the company?
Well, it benefits a company like TGOD or Emblem because, one, as he was saying before, there's only 39 licensed producers. 39 licensed producers for a country that is, a population of 40 million?
Yep.
Is not enough. So I looked at it as a supply and demand play. Yes, there were things for Emblem, it was the biotech and also the cultivation. For TGOD, it's the cultivation, and that they're sitting on a giant chunk of land. They're partnered with a massive energy company that can save them millions, which will be reflected in the bottom line at the end of the day. And if they do pass recreational, which they will, the demand and the amount of licensed producers and the current climate of becoming a licensed producer, it's a 3-year process, if you're lucky. There's 200 plus applications out there, and with no guarantees. So these licensed producers, especially the public ones, are just going to be, I just look at them as home runs.
Yeah, it really is that golden ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Aubree? You've invested in a lot of public and private companies. I mean, we met a while back and we talked about Canada, but did you expect to see something like this? Do you see the value there? Or do you see countries like Australia, Germany, some of those as new hot plays?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going back to what Brett was saying about clarity, when investors and businesses have clarity, it gives you opportunity. Jason said, it's a home run right now. That's a golden ticket. What we have in the United States right now, unfortunately, is murky, very murky. We don't know what Trump and Sessions is going to do. We're waiting for direction. We're waiting for more information. I know there's been massive contracts canceled already from even the CBD side. The DEA came out and said what they said. Businesses had massive contracts for just CBD oil. People are not putting THC cannabis in the ground right now at a large scale because of Sessions. So when you don't have clarity, and there's investors that are just sitting there waiting back right now because they can't have the clarity. So places to go to right now are Canada, Australia, where there is clarity, and there is lots of money flowing to those environments right now.
A lot of money flowing out of the U.S. and into those areas.
Well, yeah, and and I agree with everything, the Jeff Sessions, it's a huge question mark. But part of the reason that I've been able to do as well as I have trading is kind of reading between the lines. And one thing that nobody ever talks about is, whatever your politics are, whether you like Clinton or Trump, whatever. But at the end of the day, one of Trump's main people on his transition team is Peter Thiel.
Right.
Okay? Peter Thiel is one of the biggest investors in Privateer Holdings, okay? Which is a $500 million company. Everybody misses that. So
he doesn't care about losing $75 million.
Well, it doesn't matter, but he doesn't, you don't want to, rule one is make money, number two is don't lose money. I don't think he's going to lose money. I think right now they create this panic, which, look, at the end of the day, these types of fluctuations are why you take profit. You get in, you get out, especially if they're penny stocks. But you see that the system for the U.S. is being gamed towards the pharma side. So, I look at it as an opportunity in some places. No, I'm not going to go and put, my 401k into a penny stock. You should never do that anyway. But, it does create these buying opportunities, for some of these ancillary type businesses.
Kory, you guys are levered to Australia through the recent acquisition, and you said you got 80% of the vaporizing market share through that. How large can that market be, and where do you see this going with potential other verticals in that continent?
Did work out well, obviously, with Australia legalizing medical marijuana across the board for the country. Timing-wise for us, it was really good timing for that acquisition. We were in discussions with them prior to any of that happening. We did see value in that business. They're operating, they did $4 million in sales. We audited their financials for 2016. They were profitable, 27% EBITDA margin. So they're operationally sound, they're profitable, very small, lean team. So coming into that market for us is really great because of the changing legislation in Australia. And what we're starting to realize that what we've developed really is a global sort of network of cannabis users throughout all of our sites. So it's very well diversified. We made an announcement a few weeks back with a partnership with Canopy Growth Corporation in Canada. That's a licensed producer. With our ability to market their content and informational content to our customer databases, there's a lot of value in that for us as well. So we're starting to see this more as, not more, but also separately as a data play. Yeah. So we have massive databases. We have over 600,000 people in our database all over. So the idea, if we can do it in Canada and it works well, there's operations with licensed producers in Australia as well, which is a massively, very quick growing market there too. So we look to, in the future, not only sell hardware, but also leverage our data to bring profitability to the company and exposure that way too. Yeah. So Australia is a perfect example of that for us.
And data is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, we've seen a lot of Canadian companies making investments into other ancillary businesses, some companies that could lower their average cost. Does TGOD have plans of that nature? Are you guys going to, I like to classify companies as either an acquirer or one to be acquired, and you guys, I think, are an acquirer.
Yeah, we've, the company has been put together and backed by a group of entrepreneurs that, have frankly come to retirement to do this. So there's no intention of selling the company. So we're obviously looking at businesses that will directly benefit the Green Organic Dutchman, whether that's licensing plays or acquisitions in other jurisdictions. But we're also establishing a fund, or have established a fund that takes the access to deal flow and information that we're getting from being a licensed producer, and then parlays our expertise in the corporate finance market. And we're going after ancillary businesses and either acquiring them or more accurately, I guess, would be we've set up an incubator model. So we'll go find a small group of dispensaries or an edible line, and we'll go and finance them ourselves. We'll bring our capital markets and business expertise to help restructure and align that business, and then move them forward and provide the capital as long as they're hitting the milestones. Provide the capital for operating moving forward. So a bit of an incubator, a cannabis incubator, if you will.
And you guys have seen a lot of human capital transfer over. I mean, you guys had, was it a head of capital markets from Echelon come over?
Yeah, and that's where you talk about some of the expertise you brought in through acquisition. We've gone out and we know we're the stupidest people in the room, right? Anyone that thinks they're the smartest shouldn't be sitting here, and the fact that you guys are all sitting here means that is the case. But we go after people that are a lot smarter than we are, and we bring them in the team. Echelon Partners is a mid-cap investment banking firm in Canada, arguably the number one in the cannabis space. And we went after their head of banking and pulled him away to run the fund for us. I have no business running a fund. We'll sit back and oversee it and work with it. But we bring people in that are a lot better fitted to run those. So yeah, that's one of the angles we've made.
What's your thoughts on that strategy, Jason? Do you see any specific verticals that should be targeted, or companies that could be acquired by companies like the Green Organic or Namaste?
Well, and I've had this conversation. When I see some of these companies doing massive raises that are, they're licensed producers. Look, cultivation, that's that wheelhouse. But for other companies, I see huge deficiencies in data, in media. And I see a lot of companies out there that are doing really well, operating in the black, and probably could be acquired for a much cheaper value, because even the people that are running it don't understand what their true worth is. They don't understand that, even myself, we were approached for a buyout for our company, and when I talked to my partners about it, I didn't even have a sense of what we were doing in data, because that's not my wheelhouse. And we're doing about 2 million in data a year, just on data, which is basically an intrinsic value. So the way it works is, for every subscriber we get, if we had to pay for it, to onboard that person would cost anywhere from $8 to $12 a person. Right now, we're averaging between 750 and 1,000 double opt-in organic subscribers a day, which, when you look at what we do and how we put out news, is why we're able to command out, the rates that we do, because our database is just so massive. So that strategy that Brett is doing with the guy from Echelon, it works all over the place. It's just, like Peter Lynch says, like, invest in what you know. Like, I'm not a cultivator. I'm really marketing and data. I look at data and media as, look, I'm just a guy that started with a couple $100 and grew it into something much larger because, I saw where the deficiency in data, and there's deficiencies all over the cannabis industry. It's just a matter of looking at it. A lot of companies are using, if it's a tech company, they're using off-the-shelf technology. Weed Maps, which is a $300 million company, it's an app. It does a pin drop, which you can get from Google, tells you where a dispensary is, but they had first mover advantage. And nobody wants to battle them, because they're like, oh, they're so big. When we took over marijuanastocks.com, there was 2 other companies that, and it was Cannabis FN and it was MJI News, and they weren't looking at social media as a means to market and distribute information, where we had the social media, and when we came on, they had to completely change their models because we cannibalized their audience. And there's all these things all over the cannabis industry, and not just in cannabis, but the ancillary things that support it, from security to payment processing to,
right across the board.
Straight across the board.
Aubree, you've been an investor in a lot of private companies. Which ones have you seen be the most successful, and which ones do you think have the most upside potential from now on?
So the interesting thing about the cannabis space is not like tech. So there are tech plays within the cannabis space, but it's a lot around physical products. So we don't know what the exits are going to be yet. We haven't seen massive exits. We haven't seen sizable IPOs yet. So what is the valuations? What are the yields going to be on all these companies? We don't know. Is it 10 times? Is it 100 times? Some of them are trading at, ridiculous valuations. That shouldn't even be a tech play. So I see a lot of opportunity. I don't like the grow, because we were talking, it's going to go big ag eventually. So some of the farmers I'm talking to that have been doing this for quite a while, that have come out of Ukraine or China, they're like, oh, you're probably going to have $100 a pound one day. Not today, but in the near future. So I don't even want to touch that. I like the extraction side of the house, the extraction systems, because I think that's the opportunity where margins are going to be able to stay the tightest. because there's so much you can do with the product after that's done.
Yeah.
So extraction companies, I think, are going to be fantastic. The private companies like Tom and Pete, who I invested in with, is actually a business incubator accelerator that we initially invested in. Tom pivoted and created something that he was in his wheelhouse, which was the Glue, which is a wholesale platform for the industry, which I think is going to be a phenomenal play. That has scalability. So companies that have scalability are phenomenal to look at. Tech scales faster than any other piece of the industry. So always looking for that. And then something that I like, revenues, ongoing revenues that can generate. They can, check money that's coming in. Retail right now has the best profit margin. So if you can find a company, that's what I'm looking for, is a company that may franchise the dispensary model and partner with them and help them basically have points of presence across the United States and maybe the world. So I would be looking at a franchise model, turnkey solutions that are scalable in that arena, because if you have the product and you have outlets for that product, whatever it may be, you can scale the whole vertical. So those are the investments I'm really looking at right now.
Anyone else like to add on to that? Anything they see as an attractive vertical?
I would comment on that, your comment about concentrates, actually, and I really do believe that concentrates are probably going to be the future of medicating, because at the end of the day, a lot of companies that we speak with are looking for solutions that give you an exact idea of a dosage. So it's in Canada right now, I think how many grams of cannabis can a patient have in a day? Something like.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I don't know.
But they're scaling it back. But the whole point is that it's difficult for doctors to prescribe marijuana and understand what the dosages are that the patients are taking. Concentrates are interesting because it's a whole new technology. It's taken off in the US. Right now in Colorado, over half of all dispensary sales are for concentrates. So more people are buying concentrates than buying marijuana. And it's a growing part of the market, and we see that from the products we're selling. More people are buying dabbing products, concentrate products now than dry herb vaporizers. And it gives people a tangible way, because in a concentrate that's 85% pure THC and you have X amount of milligrams, you know exactly how many milligrams of THC you're getting per dose. So from that perspective, with concentrates and with infused edibles, I think that is definitely part of the market that's strong now and will continue to get stronger in the future.
Do you think Canada will start allowing edibles to be sold anytime in the near future?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think the federal government, the Supreme Court, actually just ruled that that Health Canada has to come out with a regime to allow that. We saw them roll out the extracts and the oil platform, and I think the original amount of oil that you were able to consume, or you had to consume because it was such low THC dosing, you literally would have to drink half a cup of the Canadian oil to get high.
It's different from like shatter or wax.
Yeah,
it's a lot more potent.
So I think it will roll out. I think as Canada's done through this whole process, it will be, somewhat backward and convoluted and tough to deal with, but it'll get there. It's definitely the way it's moving forward and coming out. But we're seeing the movement towards oil is certainly sweeping a huge portion of the market.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the companies invest. I mean, Aurora just put a bunch of money in extractors, but so they have to be weaker concentrates. You can't have them as strong as they're sold in the U.S.
Yeah, they're a lot different than what you would go and get off the shelf in the U.S.
So if I could I start like a processor and a extracting business along with a grow business at the same time? Is that possible?
In Florida?
Yes.
So right now we're going through regulations right now, and you'd have to get a license for whatever verticals they decide. So we don't know what that's going to look like yet. That's one of the big issues that they're facing, and like right now, it's not looking very positive. In California, their new programs, you could have multiple licenses. So an extraction would be one license, a grow would be another license, a dispensary would be another license. Yeah. Distribution is another license. So you'd have to apply and go, and it's going to be, the cost of entry is exceptional.
Exceptional.
Right.
Yeah, we're talking 6 figures easily for one license.
So it's good to probably go in up under someone that already have those licenses available.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's good to probably go up under someone that already have those licenses.
You should definitely partner.
Yeah, use somebody else.
Regardless of if you're going to go, you should never run a business by yourself.
Right.
To that point, we're seeing a lot of that in Canada with the small amount of license there, and the process to get licensed, the cost to do it in Canada is significantly more. You're looking at, you have to build your facility before Health Canada will give you a license to operate it. So you have to go and put that cash expenditure of $10-20 million out without any clarity of whether or not you get licensed.
It could take years still, even then.
Or never happen.
Yeah.
So what you're starting to see now is a lot of these companies that are in the licensing process coming and partnering with groups like us that are licensed, and we'll bring them in under kind of as a subsidiary where we'll take part ownership in the company. They get part ownership, and we'll help fund that. But you also get some clarity and ease through that licensing process.
And some experience too. That's really important.
Small piece of a bigger pie.
Yeah, and in the United States, people will say, "Hey, I got $2 million. Can you get me a grow in Colorado?" And I say, "Well, come back to me when you have another 18." Because really, the guys that usually it was a little bit taboo. Nobody wanted to come in, and it was just the Wild West. And then all of a sudden, once like the East Coast money started to realize this, and the restriction for out-of-state money came to Colorado, these guys that I know, like .com guys, hedge fund guys, they came in like venture capitalists, and they don't need the money, and all they were doing was squeezing and manipulating the market to a lower price, where smaller producers couldn't, because they couldn't write off certain things, and because the price was dropping, they ended up getting squeezed out. I mean, now everybody's trying to sell their grow or dispensary in Colorado,
Vertically integrated
between
companies are the only
American
ones that succeed
and
now.
Canadian side
So
too.
basically, it's pretty much join a franchise.
Yeah, it's, what,
Or a
I
larger
think
company.
I really am a strong believer in ancillary, provide some kind of service. I mean, even, it's like, does anybody in here build websites?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So the gouging in the marijuana industry is obscene, all right?
Right.
So I did a test. I was like, how much would, one of my friends said, hey, this company charged me $20,000 to build a website. And I was like, really? I was like, they're getting that much? I was like, I'll build your website. Let me see how much it costs, I'll charge you $3,000, all right? It cost me like $1,500 to build, and it was 10 times better than the one that she had.
Okay.
See, something like that is, that's where you look. That's a niche to fill. Somebody that's really good at web. My partner started with a broken laptop building websites 10 years ago. Now he's, making 7 figures a year,
Okay.
Yeah, service providers never, service providers lost to outlast the ups and downs of the cyclical cycles in markets.
Oh,
You don't have the overhead operating costs that you would have.
Yeah, don't touch the, unless you've got $100 million or, a lot of capital.
Don't touch the plant.
Don't touch the plant.
No.
There's too much risk. I don't touch the plant.
Right.
I could. I don't even smoke weed.
Right.
The other great thing about the cannabis space is there's minimum competition
Yeah.
in that space, because most of everybody's still selling to the, cannabis industry is a $6 billion industry. Now it's going to, in 2020, the numbers are looking to be, in 2025, $56 billion.
Yep.
So the upside potential is huge, but there's very few people entering it right now. So you guys are smart. You're here now. A great expression was, is it too late to get in? And someone said, no, we're not. We haven't even given birth yet. We're not even in our infancy. So it's not too late to get in. If you find the right niches, the ancillary plays, service is great, margins in service compared to growing and everything else.
And
Find
labor.
what all these businesses need, provide a service to that. And that's a great example, Jason, yeah.